Curmudgeon's Corner, news for the perpetually irritated, because everything is stupid and I'm tired of pretending otherwise. Good evening, your magnificent disappointments. I'm your host, Casimir H. Cole, and welcome to another soul-crushing edition of Curmudgeon's Corner, the only news program brave enough to admit that humanity peaked sometime around the invention of the sandwich. It's been downhill ever since. Tonight's lineup of human folly includes people discovering obvious things. Other people are being surprised by consequences, and my personal favorite, everyone continues as predictably awful as I said they would be last week when nobody listened. Let's dive into this cesspool of words, shall we? Professional activists discover activism is hard. Our first story tonight proves that what I've been saying for the last 30 years. Most people confuse making noise with making progress. Some buffoon named Gary #Justice, and yes, that apparently is his legal name now because we live in the stupidest timeline, has discovered that his 47 tweet manifesto about dismantling systems has dismantled exactly 0 systems. Gary, who I suppose subsists entirely on quinoa and righteous indignation, told our imaginary field reporter that despite using every revolutionary buzzword in the progressive lexicon, populism remains frustratingly intact. I said educate yourself 17 times, Gary whined, presumably while adjusting his man bun. I mentioned intersectionality. I talked about decolonizing mathematics, which, by the way, exactly the kind of nonsense phrase that makes normal people vote Republican, and yet somehow the oppressive system of math still exists. In related news, Dr. Amanda Realworld from the Institute for Stating the Obvious pointed out that screaming at people it might be less effective than actually doing things. For this revolutionary insight, she's being canceled faster than you could say academic freedom. Because, God forbid, we live in a world where that expertise requires more than a Twitter account and strong feelings about things. California politician accidentally discovers reality. In our next story, a California state senator has experienced what medical professionals call a temporary bout of common sense. A condition so rare in Sacramento that the CDC is sending a team to study it. State Senator Jennifer Progressives, and I swear I'm not making these names up, though I wish I were, apparently looked around their state and decided and noticed that their policies might be connected to their problems. Ooh, I know, revolutionary thinking. Wait, Senator Progressives reportedly said while staring into the homeless encampment outside her organic juice bar. So when we make it impossible for business to operate, they leave? And when we tell them the federal government is going to pound sand, they get upset? She then made an earth-shattering observation that you can't actually tweet your way out of a housing crisis. Next thing you know, she'll discover that good intentions aren't budgetary line items and land acknowledgments don't actually give land to anybody. I think you figured it out by now, right? Her staff assures us that this outbreak of rationality is only temporary, and she should soon be back to blaming everything on climate change and systemic racism by Thursday. Because heaven forbid politicians take responsibility for the consequences of their own votes. Americans prefer to feel smart to being informed. We now turn to a study that confirms what anyone with half a brain already knew. Americans choose their news sources the same way they choose their breakfast cereal, based on what that makes them feel good about themselves. The Center for Confirming What Curmudgeons Already Know has released findings showing that 100%, and I repeat, 100% of Americans, select news sources based on which ones make them feel intellectually superior than their neighbors. Ring, 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 ring. I spoke with lead researcher Dr. Truth Hertz, who somehow managed to secure funding to study this something blazingly obvious. Whether people watch NPR or feel smarter than this Fox News crowd, or watch Fox News and feel smarter than the NPR crowd, or read alternative media and feel smarter than everyone, Dr. Hertz explained, the common thread is that nobody actually wants to learn anything. They want to have their existing prejudices validated while intellectually superior. In other breaking news, water is wet. Politicians lie, and I've been right about everything since 1987 when I predicted that giving everyone a voice would result in everyone talking and nobody listening. But sure, let's keep pretending doing your own research means something other than finding confirmation of what you already believe. Our next story comes from the halls of higher education, where someone finally admitted what the rest of us have known for decades. Having a degree doesn't mean you understand how the world works. Mike knows better, master's degree holder and professional disappointment to his parents, has made the stunning admission that his expensive education might not have prepared him for reality. And I can tell you exactly why. Capitalism is evil. Mike confessed to while baristaing his way through his student loan payments. But when you ask me how to create a job or why communist countries keep running out of food, I just start babbling about late-stage capitalism and neoliberalism. Neoliberalism, by the way, is what college kids call basic economics when they don't want to admit that they slept through Econ 101. Mike then made a revolutionary discovery that his sociology professor, who has never run so much as a lemonade stand, might not be the best source for understanding how supply chains works. This has led to a nationwide shortage of practical solutions, while the supply of graduate degrees in interpretive dance theory remains at an all-time high, and parents wonder why their kids move back home after college. From Los Angeles, that glittering monument to human hubris, we have the news of protesters who are shocked. That's right, shocked to discover that pissing off working people doesn't make them sympathetic to your cause. A group of protesters who thought that blocking highways was a brilliant strategy have made the startling discovery that minimum wage workers late to their jobs doesn't win hearts and minds. We blocked traffic for hours, and whine Sarah Good Intentions, who I guarantee has never worked a job where being late gets you fired. But somehow, the people we trapped in gridlock didn't immediately see the wisdom of our demands to abolish immigration enforcement. Political scientist Dr. Common Sense, who apparently is the last person in academia with a functioning brain, explained that inconveniencing regular people while lecturing them about privilege might not be effective persuasion. Oh my God. It's almost like people care more about feeding their families than about your theoretical frameworks, Dr. Sense observed. But that can't be right, because they learned in their activism workshop that disruption equals awareness. That the protesters plan to respond by blocking more highways and increasing their chanting volumes, because if something doesn't work, obviously you need to just do it louder. God save us from these people who think that good intentions justify bad strategies. Well, before we wrap up tonight's parade of human disappointment, I need to make a confession that will shock absolutely no one who's been paying attention. Fuck it, I'm going to keep this on. In preparing for tonight's stories, I've realized that I'm probably just a bitter old crank who just gets off on feeling superior than everyone else while contributing absolutely nothing to solving these problems. Am I just a conservative version of the progressive skulls I spend all my time mocking, sitting here in my little studio, sneering at people for being exactly as awful as I expect them to be, while my only contribution is light into society is what? Being right about how wrong everyone else is? Yeah, probably. But here's the difference. I know I'm a misanthropic old fool, and I embrace it. At least I'm honest about my contempt for humanity instead of dressing it up as compassion or progress or whatever noble lie people tell themselves. Besides, someone has got to be the guy that points out that the emperor has no clothes, especially if nobody wants to hear it. Someone has to be willing to say that most people are exactly as selfish, short-sighted, and willfully ignorant as they appear to be. And frankly, after 40 years of watching humans disappoint me in exactly the ways I predicted they would, I've earned the right to be a cranky old bastard about it. Anything else I'm going to go through? Well, this has been the Curmudgeon Corner, where we tell you uncomfortable truths to people who won't listen anyway. I'm your host, and I'll be back next week to watch humanity continue its relentless march toward mediocrity, while everyone pretends to be surprised by the results. Good night, you magnificent disasters. Try not to prove me right about anything else before next Tuesday.